Want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
And away we go, off and running at the end of the month of June here. Edition of the Sports Fix coming your way as we get rocking and rolling and heading into the weekend. Boy, a lot to get into. I'm not going to lie. Before I get into the introduce or anything, I just want to and talk about something. If you'll indulge me here for just a minute, because I don't know, I guess the cliche, proud as a peacock doesn't even apply. This morning, just for the accomplishments of somebody who I can proudly say I had a small part in helping get where he got. But let me tell you, we talk about Cleveland and grit and toughness and overcoming adversity. And my man, Mike Hutter, many of you guys may not know who that is, but in professional wrestling, he is Ethan Carter III. He's one of the biggest stars in Impact Wrestling, really in the world of professional wrestling. He's from right here in Northeast Ohio, from Willoughby, and about 11 years ago or so, went right across the street from Classic Park out there in Eastlake, literally right across, Vine Street there, right across the road was where we trained, and a young man named Mike Hutter walked into the gym. It was circa 2003, 2004, something like that, and a young man with a whole lot of future and a whole lot of potential walked in and said, "Hey, do you think I can do this?" And I said, "Kid, I think you can do it if you put your nose to it and you get to work, and you definitely have all the potential in the world." And let me tell you, Mike Hutter has had multiple full knee reconstructions along the way. I mean, he didn't just explode to the top. This kid worked from the ground up, got signed by the WWE as a young wrestler, as a developmental wrestler, suffered multiple bad knee injuries, full knee. He's got more money in knee reconstructions than some of you guys will make in 10 years of living added together. I'm not even being sarcastic about that. There's a whole lot of money and metal invested in the knee of Michael Hutter, but he overcame all of that. He overcame politics. He overcame being overlooked. Left WWE, went to Impact Wrestling. They gave him the ball, and he ran with it. He has been one of the fastest rising stars in the world for the last 2 years in TNA, and even though it hasn't aired on television yet, it won't air until next week. Last night, I woke up this morning to the news, and I've been smiling all morning. Last night, he beat the great Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle, one of the most famous wrestlers in pro wrestling history, for the Impact Wrestling World Heavyweight Championship. And as we sit here today, there's a champion from Cleveland, baby. His name is Mike Hutter. You guys should be proud of him. I sure am. Hell, there's only been a few hundred world champions in history, and I can say I trained one of them, man. And he did the work, and he put himself there. But incredibly proud of him. And just wanted to take a few minutes here to start today's show and say, man, told you guys, champions coming. 2015 from Cleveland, Mike Hutter, EC3, Jessica I and Stipe in the UFC are following right behind. Hey, I may even have a few things to say before we're done. The Cavs are knocking on the door. We got a lot to be happy about, guys. But again, hats off. Congratulations to Cleveland, Northeast Ohio's own Michael Hutter, who is the world heavyweight champion. Unbelievable stuff. Congrats to him. And hey, let's get rocking and rolling, you guys. Whole lot of sports fix to get into today. I am your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone. They call me J-Rocc, Jerry Myers. Call me what you will. As I say all the time, call me. Happy to have you guys here. Grateful to have you guys with me each and every day when we're here live at noon across the Sports Fix radio network. Maybe you're listening live on tune in their respective digital and mobile apps. Maybe you're enjoying the show live on Spreaker.com or Mixler and their respective sites and digital apps. Maybe you're enjoying the show right on our home base, thesportsfix.net. And as I've mentioned, over the next few days here, final overhauls of the website being done. There'll be some upgrades. It'll be much more mobile friendly in the next few days. There'll be a new embedded player. It'll just simply make the interface much, much easier for you guys. So look for that. Bookmark it if you haven't. It's a great backup site, thesportsfix.net. It's got everything you need right there. As well, shout out, hello, welcome in all weekend long to those of you that listen around the world. Thousands and thousands of you guys on digital delay 24 hours a day. Time zones everywhere on sites like iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes, on Stitcher Radio, on SoundCloud, CarPlay, all of the different places that you guys enjoy the show. Feed us, get your fix, subscribe, download, whatever the jargon is. Thank you guys for doing the thing. Be a part of the show. We say it every day. Get your fix. I do this spiel every single day. You guys probably know it by heart. Phones not open because actually just less than 10 minutes from now, Jonathan Knight, Sportswriter extraordinaire, is going to join us. Mike Brandenberry following him right up on that. So I'll crack the phones at the end of the show. But as you guys know, you can always call 24 hours a day and leave us your take. 216-539-75. Twitter, easiest way to do it, 24/7. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixcle. Email us, thesportsfix@aol.com. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixcle. Email us, daddy, thesportsfix@aol.com. A few minutes before JK joins us here, want to talk NBA draft a little bit. Last night, some interesting things out of it. Cavaliers a little less interesting for some than others. We'll talk about, matter of fact, we'll get into what the Cavs did here momentarily, but at the top of the draft, I saw some interesting stuff. Obviously, Karl Anthony Towns ends up going number 1 overall. The Minnesota Timberwolves. I was joking with Dan Wismar a little bit about this before on the air with you guys, but the Minnesota Timberwolves are primed to face the Cavs in the finals for a couple of the next 4 or 5 seasons. I'm just going to throw that out there now as they continue. Not only did they add Anthony Towns, but then they make another trade with the Cavaliers. What an interesting finals that would be. You look for those cross-sectional stories because the Cavs have freaking built the Minnesota Timberwolves over the last 12 months with the trades of draft picks and Wiggins and Bennett and those. Well, yeah, Bennett too. But anyways, the Cavs added to that as the Cavs drafted Tyus Jones with their 24 pick from Duke. Remember, he was the big, came up big in the championship game there for the Blue Devils, and the Cavaliers drafted Jones, and a lot of people got excited. I said, hey, that fits a need. You obviously need a more playmaker-ish guard. Delhi is a spot role type stuff, but you do need a guy that can create and play make. I thought Jones had a good fit there for the Cavs, but really the Cavs in not any position to things are. These couldn't have made more of an ass out of himself last night if he tried. If you'd listen to Jalen Rose, the Cavs are going to be the first finals and have everybody leave town. Jalen Rose had it up on the big board. He had David Blatt being fired for some reason. He had he literally predicted that David Blatt won't make it through, that Kevin Love's gone. He's gone. He's going to the Lakers. LeBron's leaving too. It's going to be Kyrie Irving, Tristan Thompson, and Dellavedova, baby. So that's what, really, they wrote the epitaph, especially Jalen Rose. And it makes me laugh when guys that are whatever, man. Jalen Rose, his basketball resume is only a hair above mine. I'm just kidding. He played in the league. I'm just kidding. But who cares? He is terrible. He's the same guy who made, I think, 52, I counted, false predictions in the final 2 rounds of the NBA playoff. He's ridiculous, but they all were. I'm telling you, but who cares? Anyways, moving on from that, Tyus Jones shipped to the Timberwolves. They give the Cavs their 31 and 36 picks in the second round, which the Cavs then used to select a couple of players. The difference is there's a cap hold, an automatic 3-year contract that comes with being a first-round NBA pick that doesn't come with being a second-round pick, and I think that was more looking for there. They were able to draft a European player that they don't. It's kind of a draft and stash type thing, which we're seeing is the new hot thing in the NBA. Cavs have a couple of those guys floating out there already. Sasha Khan's out there. But anyways, the first pick that the Cavaliers trade, they end up bringing in, and I'll tell you what, keep some personal knowledge of these players when you're looking at the differences of evaluating the overseas guys. But anyways, Cedi Osman became the third players, as I said, British League, and he's expected to stay there season. So David Griffin point blank described Cedi here as 2018 season. Now, every coach and every GM puts over their draft picks, so take it for what it's worth with a grain of salt. But he said he feels that in 2 years, Osman at 22, when he comes to the league, will be better than anybody they could have drafted at number 24. I actually believe that had Hollis Jefferson not gone at 23, I believe that was going to be the pick for the Cavs at 24, because they're the Wright and Rozier, the couple of guards that the Cavs were thinking of taking, went off early. And then Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, the small forward from Arizona, who really, to me, is Tristan Thompson with just a slightly upgraded offensive game coming out of college. The Nets snagged him right before, Portland and then in the trade. But Hollis-Jefferson went at 23, which I think was the player that, had he been there, one more pick for the Cavs, I think that may have been who they took. But instead, the Cavaliers take Jones, make the flip-flop with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then Christmas came for Cavaliers fans as they also signed in the second round. They drafted Raheem Christmas, the big man from Syracuse, with the number 36 pick. Both guys that they ended up taking here with the rest of the second round picks are that they have a little more maturity, a little more used to the deal. But at the same time, there's a reason that they didn't come out in year 2 and 3. Many people feel that way anyway. Christmas, nearly 18 points a game, 9 rebounds in his senior season after a subpar, I guess some people called it, underwhelming first few seasons of his college career. We'll see how that works out for the Cavaliers there, but I think that's a good potential big man pick there. And then Sir Dominic Pointer from St. John's, the small forward that they snatched with the number 53 pick. I'll tell you right now, I've heard, and people love to throw those similarity type things, and it reminds me of this player or that player, but you've heard Draymond Green thrown out there quite a bit as people describe Pointer. He's a long, rangy, athletic guy, very versatile, and versatility is a big thing with David Griffin and these Cavaliers. Last season, averaged 14 points, 8 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 2.5 blocks. Was also the most improved player in the Big East and the co-defensive player of the year. So you can see the type of players that the Cavs are going for and going after there in the second round. And who knows, one or both of those guys may have a chance to play their way into the roster situation here. Otherwise, they're probably looking at a season up and down, back and forth, much like Joe Harris this year with the Canton Charge. We'll talk about that some more, and the draft. You know what? I want to talk some more about that. Let's get Jonathan Knight in on the conversation here. We'll be right back and continue talking NBA draft. Larry Nance Jr., he's got some splaining to do. We'll talk about that, D. Russ, and more. The draft, the Cavs, the Indians, all of that. Jonathan Knight, Sportswriter extraordinaire, coming up next after a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back, Daddy.
I used to go to dinner, then take the girls. Tiny, play against Earl Pearl and Will, Ringo, and Jerry West. Play basketball at its very best. Basketball has always been my thing. I like Magic, Bird, and Bernard.
Get your fix.
Because it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got to do.
It's the Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch Harry Buffalo out the door. Got great every day. Join the herd.
iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeart app today. Subscribe to the show and get your fix.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, tell jokes, library, bumper car, swing night. The biggest impact to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize. I mean, a really real prize. Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com.
Hey everybody, this is Jerry the King Lawler from WWE, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live. J-Rocc here. Jonathan Knight, Sportswriter extraordinaire, joining me on the hotline. You guys can keep the conversation going as we get back into it. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us on the old Twitter box. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. We were talking a little NBA draft, talking about the Cavs, and hadn't really gotten too deep into it. I'm going to touch back on that a little bit. We'll talk some draft here from last night, talk some Indians and Major League, baby. Coming Monday, going to have a lot of fun with my man, my guest. He's on.
I'm fine, overcast, cloudy. How are you, man?
But it's beautiful here, man.
Yeah, I think that's we're about to get dumped on again. So
that's probably what it is.
Even better, because you deserve this more than we do, honestly.
Well, I was joking with my son. My little guy's got little league, and every other day he had a game this week. And I'm telling you, it rained on the 2 days that he had games, and on the 3 days that he didn't, it was beautiful. It was like golf weather. It was that boy. If every day was like this, it'd be great, you know. And I said, well, yeah, no luck this week when it comes to the baseball weather, but today
the Indians could have used a little rain this week. Can we just can we schedule rain every time they play the Tigers? Can we arrange that somehow?
Absolutely. I think that's only fair after that, man. Let's not start there. We'll get there. I mean, let's work our way there. I know not a ton of excitement in Cavaliers land with what they did in the draft last night. I will say that I dig the potential, and I see the versatility of the guys they grabbed in the second round. I do believe that you may end up having a diamond in the rough, but the Cavs were in no position. I think once the one or two guys that they would have taken at 24 came off the board, they were in no position to lock up a few $1 million on the salary cap for a guy that may or may not even contribute to the team, when you can just go a few picks later and not have to have those guaranteed first-round contracts.
Yeah, I don't know what the expectation was. I'd like to think that nobody really expected the Cavs to go into the draft and trade up into the top 10 or make some sort of big deal, or that they were going to land a starter. I don't know what the thought process was for people who were really disappointed with what happened, but you're right. I mean, there's a logic, and really it sounds would do. I mean, we've seen them spend the draft basically setting up next year's draft. And it just goes on in perpetuity. The difference here is the Cavs a couple of years was any real stuff.
For the moment does not mean years down the road, which I did think went wrong. LeBron ignoring they ignored the second round of the draft, basically from 2007, 2006 draft period for the most part. Brought in no contributions from the draft, and that cap maxes out so high, it's so much harder to improve your team. But here, I'll just say this, and I said it earlier, I said every guy sells their picks right now, and of course they're talking about, hey, in 2 years, Cedi Osman's going to be, better than anybody we could have taken at 24. But I talked to some people last night who know more about European basketball than me, Turkish league, and that's where he was playing specifically. But that's a very similar situation to what the Bulls did with Mirotic a couple of years ago. And look at the impact that he brought when he came in 2 years later and played for them this season. He was a big contributor for them. I can see something like that. But I'll tell you what, the Pointer, the one that kind of intrigues me the most. Rakeem Christmas has got the funny name, but I hear a lot of people describing Sir Dominic Pointer as very similar to a Draymond Green type of player that's long, rangy, gets the boards, does the dirty work. There's a spot on this team for players like that. And really, Christmas too. They're versatile, long, and athletic, and that may be important at the end of the bench. I mean, last night, David Blatt and Griffin basically said that Pointer could have played in the finals had he been on the Cavs this past season because he did enough things that would have helped them with what they were doing against Golden State.
Yeah, and that's a great point because the Cavs, those second-round picks are not sexy. I mean, they're just not. These are the players that nobody's caring about. Really, nobody cares about anything outside the lottery picks, maybe even just top 5. Once you get past that, it starts to get a little unrecognizable, and they're not going to be players that can alter your franchise overnight. They're not those kinds of guys. But those guys that you can pick up in the late first round and in the second round, that's where you start building a team that makes those little differences when you get deep into a tough series. And that's exactly right. You're looking for guys that can fill roles. You're looking for guys that can provide depth, because if there's one thing that we saw these last couple of weeks is that the Cavs, not necessarily their own fault, because I mean, who could foresee all the injuries, but they needed depth, and that's what this can provide. Whether or not it does remains to be seen. We'll see how this plays out, but that's what the Cavs need. So it's okay if they're going to bring in a guy that it just fills that role as a defensive specialist or whatever. That can make a difference in a tight series. So it's unsatisfying now, but 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when you're in a tough conference semifinal, conference final, and you need to win Game 5, and one of these guys can make a play in the stretch to deliver a game, then, hey, yeah, this is going to be worth it.
And 2 points that I'll make about the 2 guys that they took, not counting Cedi Osman because he's 2 years removed, is both of these guys improved every single season along the way. I point out again that Pointer was the most improved player in the Big East in his senior season, along with being Defensive Player of the Year. That shows a work ethic, and I think that's something, too, that says, hey, these are guys that'll continue to improve and work harder. And when the skill set and the work ethic go together, hey, man, you end up with some guys that can be a part of your team. So I think that people need to look at what the Cavaliers did with the bigger picture here, because I think both of these guys that they got can end up playing a little bit of a role this season for what the Cavs do, as you said, because it's depth, but not just depth. It's young depth and not old depth, and those legs make a difference in a playoff series. Just having a guy to come in and bounce all over the place and have that energy, those things make a difference. Hey, real quick, while we're talking about the draft, let me get off the Cavs. Minnesota is going to meet the Cavs in probably 2 or 3 of the next 5 finals, thanks to the Cavaliers. Don't you think that is going to be a hell of a story? Because they got Anthony Towns to go with Wiggins now, to go with that core that they got. Then we traded them Tyus Jones here in this thing. They are going to have a hell of a team in Minnesota. If I was Kevin Love, if I left Cleveland, the hell with the Lakers, I'm going back to Minnesota.
Well, and it would appear that way. I don't know.
You don't think so?
We need to see how this plays out. I don't necessarily disagree with it, but Minnesota's going to be good. I mean, don't get me wrong. They've absolutely drastically improved their team in the last 12 months, dramatically, and they're going to be better. They're going to be a playoff team. But I think people are being very quick to just anoint them as they built a champion. Well, I mean, maybe they have 3 good players. We just don't know. You never know, especially when you're talking about a rookie, even if they're a number 1 pick, whatever. You just don't know. I mean, Sam Bowie was picked ahead of Michael Jordan. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that happens. We don't know. I have no doubt these guys are going to be good, that Minnesota's going to be better. Have they built a dynasty? I don't know. I mean, the potential is there, and it would be kind of interesting to see the Cavs and Timberwolves in the finals. My God, that would be a heck of a story. But, yeah, I mean, they need to take the floor. We'll know more. I think it is going to take time. They're not going to trot out there, especially being in the Western Conference, where there's plenty of other talent there. If they were in the East, maybe they might have less of a learning curve. But there's a possibility they wouldn't even make the playoffs this year. That they may not go over 500 that much. It's going to take some time, and they're young and they have that time. But now it's going to be, even if you assume that those 3 guys, those 3 kind of core players are the foundation and are that kind of foundation that can be a championship team. Now it's doing what the Cavs are trying to do now, and what they couldn't do in 2008, 2009, 2010, really is to build that good supporting cast that can get them there, because that's where you separate a good team from a championship team. So there's still a lot of pieces to that puzzle that need to be put into place. But yeah, I mean, certainly they're better, and we'll see how that plays out. It'll be something to watch for sure. And the Cavs, I don't know if it'll, especially depending on what happens with Kevin Love, how painful will it be to see Minnesota become this powerhouse at the Cavs' expense, and the Cavs had very little to show for it. But a lot, not to say that's going to happen. A lot's going to happen both with the Cavs and the Wolves here in the next few months and years.
You keep saying 3. You forgetting about old Anthony Bennett over there, aren't you? You're just short-changed. No, I'm just kidding.
Right, yeah.
I'll tell you
wonder why I forgot that.
Let me ask you something, man. D'Angelo Russell goes to the Lakers, which I thought was – I think 3 months ago I said, boy, I could really see him going there right around the time of the tournament, and they got knocked out. And I get it, but to jump over Okafor for him, that was an interesting choice by the Lakers, especially because so many people thought for sure, and they've always had a big man there in L.A. over the years. But hey, there's some intrigue. I think Russell could go down as the best pick in this draft. I liked him. He's got so much potential for being so young. But, man, I'm a big mark for big guys and building around them. So that was a tough jump there. And then the Sixers take Okafor. What are they? They're gonna be. I saw a joke on Twitter. Somebody said the Sixers' plan is to trot out 5 centers in this new offense next year. But that's what they're doing. They're just building up big men over there. Half of them can't play. I don't think they have a clue what they're doing in Philly. But what do you think about the Lakers taking D. Russ?
I was surprised by that. I felt the same way you did. I think Okafor was, not only because I think he was the better player in college, but also because really prime big men are hard to find. And when you find one, you latch on to him, you hang on to him, and build your team around that. You can not that guys like Russell are easy to find, but it's easier to fill that role than it is to get a once in a generation or once in every decade type of center, which Okafor may not be. But I would feel safer banking on him making an impact in the NBA than Russell. So we'll see. Again, Sam Bowie, Michael Jordan. Who knew?
Yeah.
It made sense at the time, and now you look back and say, gosh, how stupid could you be? Well, they weren't at the time. Who was really criticizing them for that? So it will 5 years from now, one of them will look really smart and one of them won't. But we'll see. I don't know. I tend to think the Lakers, at least for next year, will not be as good with Russell as they would have been with Okafor. That's my instant feeling. Whether or not that turns out in the long run, man, we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. You know what? I think the Rockets, by the way, did themselves really good last night. I mean, they got beat on the boards in the playoffs, and they addressed that for real. They picked up Harrell from Louisville, who I would have loved to. That was a luxury pick that the Cavs couldn't afford to take. But, boy, man, I was watching him sit there and going, if we only needed one more big man, but we got a bunch of them. But they had 2. The other thing with the Lakers, Larry Nance Jr., who, of course, I was hoping maybe would slip to the Cavs in the second round for sentimental purposes. But I don't know if he it was funny listening to him go, hey, I'm happy to go to the Lakers, while people were digging up his Twitter account. He's got some splaining to do, Lucy. I don't know if you heard, but they went and dug up some old tweets of his from 2012 where he basically made some jokes at the expense of Kobe Bryant, and he tweeted, I hope he keeps his hands to himself when they come to Denver, #rapist about Kobe Bryant.
Ooh.
And it was dug up last night. Matter of fact, I wanted to talk about this with you because this was kind of a side story that came out of the draft, because there were Mark Cuban came out and said, there's this survey of your social media so that you don't end up with these old tweets being pulled up on ESPN. The guy that went to the Bulls got caught with the same thing. He had some Derrick Rose and Pau Gasol tweets that he had tweeted during the playoffs, and he was rooting against the Bulls and for the Heat, and people pulled those up on him. But the one with Larry Nance Jr., the Lakers straight up said, Kupchak came out and said he's going to have to deal with Kobe Bryant. They're going to have to deal with that one-on-one. We're not going to touch it, but clearly that's going to be an issue for them. I mean, it doesn't get much more blatant than calling your new Hall of Fame teammate #rapist 2 years ago and forgetting all about it until you go, oh, damn. I tweeted that out,
Wow.
didn't I?
Yeah. Once again, and I think we started this discussion back with Chris Perez and his Twitter account a few years ago, probably around that same time, 2012, when he really kind of started to get into trouble for tweeting dumb things. And no matter how many times you see athletes or celebrities sort of called out for this stuff, they still fall prey to it. They don't seem to. The mentality seems to be, well, I tweeted it and then it gets a reaction in those first 5 minutes and then it just disappears. And no, that's not the case. Twitter tweets and Facebook posts, man, those suckers are there unless you go back and take them down. And even then, I get the feeling there's probably a way you could data mine that stuff and dig it up. If something really inflammatory is out there, they wanted to find it, they'll find it. So the rule of thumb, I think that this is an old Irish an old Irish axiom in politics, particularly in Boston, Massachusetts. Never write it down. Never put anything on paper that you don't want the whole world to see, because eventually it will. I mean, if you're a high-profile person, whether you're talking politics or sports or celebrity, whatever, if you've done or said something stupid and it's recorded and it's on tape or in print, it will surface. So once again, we're learning, and this is going to be the future of sports, that these high-end prospects in college and even high school, they're going to start to be trained. Okay, first of all, don't tweet anything.
Don't tweet,
stupid. Delete it instantly. Go back through all of your accounts now, delete it all, because it's the future of sports right here.
For sure. That was at least competitive. I just don't like this player, that type thing. Larry Nance and I have my own #rapist. I don't care. I don't have to play on his team. But who'd have known in 2012 that you're going to tweet that in 3 years later, 5 years later, 4 years later, however long it is, that you're going to get drafted by the Lakers and have to answer to that one, man. But if I was Kobe, I'd be a little ticked off for the simple fact that that's a little more than just I don't like watching the Lakers play. But anyways, Larry Nance, interesting there. But I'll tell you what, I'm curious to see how he does in the NBA anyway. I'm very interested to see if he ends up panning out, because, we have the sentimentality because of the name here in Cleveland, but who knows how it's actually going to be when it plays out. You brought up Chris Perez, by the way. Did you notice he got suspended again this past week?
I saw that, and I kept thinking, and they once he got suspended, then they ticked back through his other suspensions and his other problems, and I remember talking about all of them on the show.
Yes,
mailing weed to his dog and all that fun stuff. Yeah.
Yes, mailing weed to his dog. That is right. Yes, that was funny. Do you know what this? I just saw that it was a drug of abuse. I don't know if it was a pot suspension or if it was something else. But since he's in the minors, he gets tested much more frequently, which is why he got that, right? That's how they get those guys on steroids in the minors so much, because they test them differently, different frequency. They test them for different things. But I just saw that he got a 50-game suspension. It did not clarify what it was, but I said, boy, a hard time making his way back for Chris Perez there, man. Obviously, we saw the beginning of the meltdown, and this isn't to take a shot. Hey, he saved a few games before he melted down, but they all reached that point, and clearly we saw the beginning of the end for Chris Perez here in Cleveland.
Yeah, we did. And to be honest, I didn't realize he was in the minor leagues. I thought he was just kicking around somewhere. I think he had been in Milwaukee's camp, I think, in spring training, and didn't make the team, and then wound up in the minors. So, yeah, I mean, when you hear that alone, you think, oh boy, it's pretty much close to the end now at this point for Chris Perez. If he's not able to make a team that's struggling as much as Milwaukee is. Yeah, that's a pretty bad time. So this may be the final nail in the coffin, really. I mean, gosh, that's a pretty good indication that here's a guy who's pretty much at the end of his rope.
I don't think he was even pitching anywhere when he got drug tested, to be honest with you, because the last that I saw was that he had that deal with Milwaukee to play in the minors, but he left. He left after he didn't even pitch 10 innings for them, I don't believe, and he opted out of the deal. So I don't even know that he was actually pitching for a team at the time that he got tested, because I would assume that they could still randomly call you whenever and tell you that your number got called or whatnot. So I don't know, but how the mighty fall. You brought up Chris Perez, and I was like, hey, by the way, he was in the news this week too.
Also in the news, and such a shame. I mean, it's always a shame to see, because he clearly had talent. I mean, we forget he's still the number 3. He's number 3 on the Indians' all-time save list. He's third all time of all of the closers they've had. He's number 3, and he wasn't here that long. He really only had two or three really good years, and he still ranks third all time for the Indians in saves. So there was some talent there, and that's always heartbreaking to see. This wasn't like an injury or something tragic. I mean, this is just a guy who had serious control problems and on and off the field, I suppose. And that's just heartbreaking to see somebody kind of scrounge their talent like that.
And you say he's number 3, and you think about that, he wasn't even on good Indians teams, if I remember. I mean, he was on the 11 and 12 Indians teams.
He was on the 65 win teams. He was not on any playoff team. I mean, he was on that 2013 team, but if you remember, he was not the closer at the end of that. He was not pitching at all at the end of that playoff run. So, yeah, he racked them up with some. He did not have as many save opportunities as some of these other guys have had. So, yeah, all the more to short period.
Hey, you know what, Chris Perez? I got some advice for you. And then Jonathan Knight kind of knows he's a little specialist on this kind of thing, but maybe you need to get your eyes checked. Maybe, maybe, you need to go get you some new glasses, some black, thick-rimmed, maybe put a little skull and crossbones in the middle of them there. It just seemed to work. Anyways, making the obvious Major League reference, how are things going with the rush and whirlwind of publicity around the making of Major League? How's that going for you? Obviously, you're in here with us next week, but how is it going?
Yeah, it's going well. You're right. It's a whirlwind. It's been a lot of fun. The response has been terrific. I've gotten a lot of great feedback, some really great reviews. Really kind of overwhelmed by how much people have really kind of lapped this up to this point. It's been really a lot of fun and talking with you and being on other show. I mean, it's so great to see how many people, again, and it just never gets old. You would think that this would wear off, not just the book, but the movie itself, that it would kind of, okay, well, the bloom's off the rose here, let's move on to other things. But no, people just they just cannot get enough of this movie. They just love it. And I think even in years like this, where the Indians are struggling, I think people cling to that movie even stronger, because that is the environment in which this movie was born. It was born of a time when the Indians were no good, and there was very little hope in any of those seasons. And this year is not quite that bleak, but yeah, I mean, certainly a frustrating year. And this is the type of year where you turn to Major League and, hey, there's a book out. Yeah, I'll read that. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a whole lot of fun, but not as much fun as it's going to be Monday. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely. You're doing the whirlwind of media appearances on Monday. Then you're going to stop in here and do the show with us in studio. What are we going to talk about? I definitely want to hear some of the stories of you putting the book together. I mean, traveling out and talking to these guys, sitting down with Charlie Sheen and different people. And I know that alone, the making of the book is probably got a bunch of stories that go right along with the making of Major League.
It does, yeah. We'll totally get into that, and we'll have people. We can have people calling in, asking questions. Yeah, I mean, it'll be a lot of fun. That'll be not just to talk about the movie, the inside stories, but some of the tales of how this thing got put together. Yeah, there's a lot of ground to cover. It'll be fun. I think everybody's gonna really enjoy Monday's show.
Yeah, I can't wait. So, I mean, you got a lot to get ready this weekend and get into it. The Indians will be playing. We didn't even touch on them, but maybe that's a good thing. As you mentioned at the beginning here, the week started with the Detroit Tigers, man. And, hey, full circle. It's just like in the movie. They're the modern-day equivalent of the Yankees or the White Sox there in the Major League movies, depending if you're watching Major League 1 or Major League 2. But there you go. Maybe we'll get over these guys, man. JK, real quick. Dan and I were talking about it the other day. Not like you need this to get beat over the head if you're an Indians fan, but you hear about the dominance, but then you see the number since 2013. And we're not talking about 10, 11, 12. We're not talking about Manny Acta. Since Terry Francona in 2013, those cats are 35-13 against the Indians. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's completely crazy town. And that makes no sense because you look at, yes, the Tigers are good, but I looked it up and for a column I was writing for Did the Tribe Win last night this week, and the Terry Francona's winning percentage versus the field, versus everybody but Detroit in his time with the Indians is .565, and his winning percentage against Detroit is .300. Like, how do you explain that? That just makes zero sense. They've played the Yankees better. They've played the Red Sox better. They've played tough teams in the National League. They've played everybody better than Detroit. And I cannot figure it out. Detroit is the better team. I think there's no question there. But my gosh, to that extent, it's like no, that's just no. And the really funny thing is, if you take away their head-to-head matchups the last 3 years, just as if the Indians and Tigers did not play. In 2013, the Indians will win the division. In 2014, the Indians make the playoffs as a wild card. And this year, the Indians would be over 500 and about 4 games out of first place. I mean, it's amazing how that just totally carpet bombs your season. It's amazing. You don't really think of it. You think, oh, well, we can't beat the Tigers. Well, we'll just make it up everywhere else. They're not. You can't. I mean, it just puts such a dent because you play the Tigers 19 times. That's such a huge chunk of your schedule that when you can't beat them, that just completely torpedoes your season. So it'll be interesting to see. They play 10 more times in September. They get 2 months off, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Guys, think about what JK just said. I didn't even realize that aspect of it. If you eliminate the Indians and Tigers head-to-heads over the last couple seasons, it completely changes the course of history. I mean, that really highlights the effect of the dominance of them in that series, man. And again, you saw it again here, man. I mean, this past week, the Indians do what they seem to have made a habit of this year, is taking that tail game of a series. You know, like they get mad enough to win the third one. You know, and you're like, come on, man. Yeah. But by the way, last thing, and you and I would be perfect to bring this up because we talked about Sports Illustrated before. Those sons of guns have done it to us again. I've been saying this week with Dan Wismar, what happens when Jason Kipnis goes cold? Because he's literally single-handedly the Indians' offense. Well, those goofs at Sports Illustrated have done it to us again because they've now named Jason Kipnis the leader in the American League MVP rankings for the first half of the season.
Oh, God.
Yes, literally.
You know what happens next.
Yes, you know he's going to get hit in the head with a baseball and he'll never be able to play again, not meaning for anything bad to happen. I'm just saying this is Cleveland. It means, no, worse than that, he'll walk to the plate for an at-bat tonight, step on a pebble, it'll cause a hairline crack in his foot that turns into a career-ending injury, all thanks to the pebble that he stepped on. It'll be the pebble. It'll go with the shot, the decision, the pebble. I'm telling you, man. Thank you, Sports Illustrated, very much for that one, man.
Well, they kept him off the cover, right? So maybe that's the saving grace. Maybe if they don't have him on the cover, maybe the juju's not quite as bad. So maybe it'll just be a sprained ankle. Like, no doubt, things are going to tail off because that's what Sports Illustrated does. They light candles and do incantations in black curtained rooms in their editorial offices and just land the whammy on people.
JK.
So something bad's going to happen, but maybe it won't be. It'll be subdued because they kept him off the cover.
I read your book on Major League. I know what shelf Joe Boo is sitting on right now. We need him back. You need to call. You know these people's cell phone numbers. We need Joe Boo back here in Cleveland. No, this is not doing us any good off on some guy's shelf, man. We need some help. We need some help, man.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's never mind Chris Perez and the glasses. We need Joe Boo in here. If we're going to break this thing, that's how you're going to do it.
We got the corner bar. It's only $13 to get Joe Boo. They'll give him a refill free with the ticket. Can we get Joe Boo in
I love that idea.
JK,
how
Monday,
great would that be?
Yes, how great would that be? Absolutely. If he just showed up, they shipped him out here and said, well, you guys could use him more than we could, you know? I'm just saying. Loan him like a museum. They do that all the time. They loan things for a few months. Can we borrow Joe Boo? Promise we'll give him back. I promise we'll give him back at the end of the season, man. Anyways, JK, Monday, we get to do this in person. I can't wait. It's going to be a whole lot of fun, my man.
I cannot wait either. It's been so long, and I'm so excited to get up there and do this in person. It's always fun regardless of where I am, but just to be there and be there where the magic is happening in person. It's like waiting for Christmas morning. I cannot wait.
I don't know about the magic, but it'll be happening here Monday, and JK will be a part of it. I cannot wait to have you here, man, and good luck with all your other stuff before that, and then I will see you here when we do it, noon on Monday.
That'll be great. I am counting the hours, man.
All right, JK, have a great weekend, and we'll catch up on Monday, live, in person.
You too, buddy.
All right.
Yes, cannot wait. Take care.
Take it easy. The Sportswriter extraordinaire, Jonathan Knight. You guys will get a chance not only to have him here in studio, but that means I get to open up the phone lines for you because of Of course, I can only have one phone line open at a time, so now you guys can join in. If you've got questions for Jonathan Knight, if you want to talk about some of the stories, we're talking about The Making of Major League is the book, and JK is going to be hanging out live Monday in the studio to talk about it. Let's take a break. News is coming your way, and Mike Brandenberry from Did the Tribe Win Last Night.com. No, they didn't play, but they get a shot at it today. We'll talk about that and more with Mike Brandenberry coming up next after the news here on The Fix.
The Sports Fix, your choice for intelligent talk.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Intelligent talk.
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
Well, there were parts of it that weren't very good, though.
It could have been a lot better.
I didn't really like it.
These guys must be on the wrong station.
It was pretty terrible.
It was bad.
It was awful.
It was terrible.
Get them away!
Hey, boo!
Boo!
The Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, do you tweet? So do we. So tweet with us 24/7 at the Sports Fix CLE.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, bumper car, swing set, bowling, pillow fight, cut loose, stay tight. Whew. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Have you gotten your copy of Cleveland's Finest yet? Highlighting the best moments, players, and media members in Cleveland sports history? In-depth, personal interviews with some of the top names in Cleveland sports fill the pages of this incredible book. Cleveland's Finest by Vince McKee is this year's must-have book for every Cleveland sports fan. Available now at Amazon.com. Get your copy today.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Doug Brown. 3 one-and-done college players at the top of the NBA draft. The Timberwolves take Kentucky's Karl Anthony Towns. D'Angelo Russell of Ohio State goes to the Lakers. And Duke's Jahlil Okafor third to the 76ers. All part of a draft record 13 college freshmen taken in the first round. There were 5 trades on draft day, but none involving lottery picks. Cavaliers guard J.R. Smith is now an unrestricted free agent. He decided not to opt in for the final year of his contract before the midnight deadline last night. At the Women's World Cup, Team USA plays China, and Rapinoe and Lauren Holiday will both miss the game because of yellow cards, and FIFA issues a warning to Abby Wambach for her critical comments about the officiating in the round of 16 game. A good week for the golfing Watsons so far. Bubba is at 9 under, leading at the second round of the Travelers Championship in Connecticut. 65-year-old Tom just misses shooting his age. He leads the U.S. Senior Open.
Searching for a great used car? Start with the millions of cars listed for sale at the all-new Carfax.com. Want cars with no accidents reported? How about one-owner cars? Just click and you've got them. Plus, you'll get a free Carfax report with every car for sale. Carfax.com.
You're listening to the Sports Fix.
welcome back to the Sports Fix Live. J-Rocc back with you. We're going to cross into hour 2 here. Mike Brandenburg is going to be with me on the hotline. You guys can stick with us here on Facebook, on Twitter. Keep the conversation going. We're talking Cavs. We're talking NBA draft. We're talking Indians. Who knows where we're going, but it's always fun. Mike's with us. You can be too. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Twitter @thesportsfixcle. Email thesportsfix@AOL.com. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us @thesportsfixcle. Email us thesportsfix@AOL.com. Real quick before I bring Mike up, we were talking about the NBA draft there in the previous couple of segments and a couple of local guys. I mean, one guy that I mentioned that I really kind of would have been, and Boston did a good job, I think, with the draft. They had picks everywhere last night, but Terry Rozier from Louisville, local guy from Shaker Heights, that was somebody I would not have minded, and I think he was one of the guys. He went at 16 to the Celtics. Had he been there for the Cavs, I think they would have taken him for sure. I'll tell you what, the other guy that Boston got, this was one that I would have taken in the first round if I was the Cavs, but I understand why they didn't, and that was R.J. Hunter because he is a shooter. But I understand the limitations, and I understand why they did what they did. So either way, Rozier, the local guy, another local guy that went in the draft was Aaron White. He ended up getting drafted, was Minnesota that took him with the, I believe, 49th pick in the draft, but obviously he's got some work to do to make the roster over the summer, but that young man coming out of Strongsville, another Northeast Ohio guy here going in the draft. We'll pick up some more on that and talk about all of these things with Mike Brandenburg right now, if he's there. I believe he is. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I think I'm there.
You are here, man. I mean, I don't know how well this is going to go, but we'll take our shot at it, man. I mean, I don't know that I can live up to following up your best podcast interview you've ever done that was not here on the Sports Fix, but I will put my ego
I don't consider
on the
this
shelf.
A podcast. So.
Oh, you did it. I set you up for it, and you hit a home run. Unlike the Indians, you came through in the clutch. That's what I wanted to hear, Mike. Way to go. Way to go, Mom. That is actually what I was hoping you would say. So good job, my man. I appreciate it.
I do what I can.
I'm giving Mike a hard time. He did a great podcast with Jim from Everybody Hates Cleveland the other day. Was it Tribe Time Now? And Mike had tweeted that it was possibly his favorite podcast ever. And I'm like, I'm gonna burn you on the air for that. You can bet that I'm coming back with. No, I love you, man, and you guys do good stuff. I like working with Jim. I like those guys over there. Dan Wismar, you got JK. You guys are all kind of intermingling together here, forming kind of super copping up together here, man.
Yeah, we're kind of like. I'm not a big wrestling fan, so you probably know more about all these great alliances when people hook up together, and make these Legion of Dooms. But
there you go.
We're kind of trying to get together and use all of our strengths, and I'm a big fan. It's not competition in my mind. It's working together to help promote one another. So
absolutely,
I always think that that's good.
Like, I love it, and I like watching it. I love watching you guys get together because everybody kind of commingled here. We're like the international dating lab here, and then everybody kind of speed dates a little bit and then goes off and has some fun together. And it's cool seeing the Cleveland fan guys and the Everybody Hates Cleveland guys and the Did the Tribe Win guys all kind of merging together. I love it.
Yeah, it's good. And I think, a lot of us are on the same page, but a lot of us have some different views and points of view too, and I think that's good. Now, I mean, we had a good talk the other day at Carlos Santana, and I think he's a guy that, I feel like there's two camps evolving. There's a camp that is going to, love Carlos Santana to the end, and then there's this like evolving camp of people that are going to blame Carlos Santana for, everything that's wrong in the world, I suppose. And I'm not sure I'm in either camp, but he's definitely a polarizing figure on this Indians team at this point, I think.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I get into that with the conversations I have with people. There's not like Carlos Santana is okay. It's either, yeah, man, I love that guy, man, or, oh, he's a bum. Get him off my team. I can't stand it. I mean, there is no, it's love or hate. There's no like or dislike there.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think even if you try to play it in the middle, the people to the far left and to the far right almost like won't allow you, because my thing is I think he's a player that just doesn't fit on this team or doesn't fit on this team anymore, and I'm all for trading him, and I'm not sure that it's bad of Carlos Santana. I'm not. We've talked before of you have to trade guys that have value, and part of the reason that I'm on board with the idea of shopping Carlos Santana now or in the winter, and I do think in the winter is probably the better time. But I think the reason that you entertain that is because he has value. But
right.
Even when you say that, the Carlos Santana fans, boy, they take that like a slap in the face, and that's not the way I intended. But yeah, I think that's a carrot that's got to be dangled out there and see what could be brought back.
See, and what Mike's saying, for those of you that aren't maybe catching it, is, it's like when I argue with you guys and Mike gets into these same arguments with guys, I'm positive as I'm saying this, he's going to shake his head yes and go, oh, I know what you're talking about. When you get those guys that, my man Chase, he's listening in the chat room. He sent me a tweet the other day during the show, and he goes, hey, how about they trade Nick Swisher? And I'm like, great. Who is going to – because if you show me the general manager that's going to take him, he's unemployed. Whether he knows it or not, he's unemployed because he shouldn't be in Major League Baseball there and be in any position to make any moves for a franchise if he's going to make that trade. But my question back was the obvious. What do you do with somebody that nobody else wants? I mean, it's easy to say, take my garbage, and I'm going to give you this guy you've never heard of before, and you're going to take this high payroll guy or this nobody prospect that I've got, and you're going to give me, somebody in their prime that's, going to come in the middle of my lineup. And you're always like, no, you have to give to get. And I know the key is figuring out how to be slicker than the other guy, but you're not people were fooled, I think, maybe by John Hart 20 years ago or something. You're not out slicking Major League Baseball at that level anymore. You're not going to go, hey, I got these magic beans over here. Why don't you send me that beanstalk you got growing right there, and mine will turn into a beanstalk later. So that's what Mike's saying, where you're at, and I get it. I love Santana. I do. I'm not going to lie. I'm in that camp. I like him. He frustrates me, but I like him. But I also like where you're coming from, because there's enough to like about him that you can get an actual tangible trade back and not trying to match what you can value-wise. I know what you mean there.
Yeah, and I go to the you have to entertain a Carlos Santana, I think. And the first one is, I think Carlos Santana, the low batting average, high on base percentage, and half of his hits are extra base hits, which is really the player that he's become. That guy, he just doesn't fit with this team, Jerry, because they have a team full of 230 hitters. And you can, Carlos Santana fans can say, well, it's not his fault that everyone else is struggling. Well, I suppose, but they don't all have the value that Carlos Santana has in a trade. And I think, if Carlos Santana's on a team with a team full of guys that hit 270 to, 310, he fits a lot better on that team because you're getting more bang for your buck with him. But, the problem is Carlos Santana walks and nobody drives him in behind him.
Right.
Or guys in front of him are getting on and Carlos Santana doesn't drive him in because he's only hitting 215. So you can draw all the walks in the world, but at some point you got to produce some runs. And, his strength is really just not working with the rest of this offense. I think that's the, a reason where you have to entertain the idea of moving him. And the other thing is, I think, you you have to admit, anyone has to admit, when you look at this roster, this team is struggling. This team is below average, and there's no other way to put it than if the reason that they struggle and the reason that they're below average falls on the position players. It isn't the pitching staff that's holding this team back. So it's the guys producing the offense. Unfortunately, I mean, Carlos Santana is a guy who has value, who has some team control for the next couple years at a fair price. And I think whether it's now or this winter, the Indians have to, whether it involves Carlos Santana or not, Jerry, they have to make some moves to change the position player side of this roster. If they don't, someone please anytime soon.
And Mike, I'm with everything you said, except where you kind of went at the beginning is where I'm at on that side of the fence in everybody else around him. And I know what you mean, but you have to change somewhere, and he's got more value than those other 230 hitters, and I get that part of it. But, I'm in the camp of ship some of those other cats out of the lineup, because if you can get some guys that can bat 270 around him, and obviously, I mean, really, the bigger piece of all this is not Carlo. To me, it feels like what we're doing is willing to sacrifice a piece that can be a decent piece of what you're doing to salvage and recover what we can because of the albatrosses at the end of the payroll, which is actually at the top of the payroll.
You're exactly right, and you hit it on the head. They're stuck with the albatrosses that are Michael Bourne and Nick Swisher.
Exactly.
And I'm with you. If you want to, let's play it your way, okay? So keep Carlos Santana and move some of your other 230 hitters. Now, you and I both know Michael Bourne and Nick Swisher are not movable, okay?
I know.
So
real quick, by the way,
what's that?
they're bringing Swisher back as quick as possible. I almost spit up my coffee when I was drinking when I heard Terry say something the other day, and he goes, "Yeah, could be up as soon as the weekend or next weekend or whatever." And I'm like, seriously? We're rushing him back to the major leagues now, apparently. We're not even going to pretend like Giambi to let him hang out there and get better. Now we're going to keep trying to rush him back into the lineup. I mean, squeeze whatever we can. I mean, I know this won't happen, but the easiest solution for everything for the Indians is to just eat that damn salary and replace it with players that can play, which of course they won't do. But then we don't have to trade anybody.
I'm completely with you.
We don't have to move anybody.
Look, man. I mean, let's be realistic. Those two are immovable, okay?
Right.
And at this point, in my mind, that money's gone, Jerry. They have played 2014, and they are now playing 2015 with little to no production from those guys, especially Nick Swisher, because he's not even healthy. So
he's worse.
Sure, and I don't think he's ever getting better. I don't think he's getting better from a production standpoint, but I'm not sure he's ever getting better from a health standpoint either. He is what he is at this point, and the money invested in those guys, they've been playing without that production for a year and a half now. That money is gone. I mean, they're essentially the $30 million put into Michael Bourne and Nick Swisher, they're essentially putting a roster out there with a $55 million payroll.
Think about that. We've brought it up
before. But they're doing it with 23 guys. And to me, that money's gone. Let's at least have 25 guys that could help them win and let the money go. Just eat it and move on.
You have to. And I think this conversation has to happen within the Indians. And then you can say, oh, Jerry, it's easy for you guys. No, that's a business decision that has to become reality at some point when think about what Mike just said. It's far from the first time he's brought that up. 23 players, you're at less than 60 million, even if you want to be generous for the entire. We bitch and cry and complain about the Dolans putting a $90 million payroll on the field and how short-handed that is from the big guns in baseball. And you're talking 55, 60 million. To be honest, as much as and I know they get as much blame for this as anybody because they signed those contracts, but for as much as you malign the front office of the Indians, that's almost a backhanded pat on the back by going, look what the hell they're doing, 2 men short and $30 million tied up in absolutely dead resources. You're not even getting where you can go, hey, Swisher at least won that game then. No, Bourne won that game then. You're getting no return. I know the Indians are stubborn, Mike, but don't you see a point where this conversation has to happen realistically but within the organization?
Everyone else is having the conversation. I'm sure to some level they're having the conversation, but Indians just don't eat salary. They just don't, Jerry. They don't on long-term guys. They just refuse. And hey, I'm right there with you. If they call me for advice today, I'll tell them step 1, cut Nick Swisher, and
let me ask you a question.
2, cut Michael Bourne.
About
Bring
Swisher.
up 2 guys that make the
league
minimum, and you'll get better production.
I'm just curious, and I'm sure the answer is no, and this is me just being way foolish with this, but I would at least take a shot at this if I was the Indians. I know that no player is going to just leave money on the table, but you would think that realistically, a guy like Swisher, with as little as he's contributed, you've got to think that you could buy out that last year of the but of course not. Who's just going to give away money, But boy, you would think that there'd be some semblance of, because sure as hell, if he'd have hit 40 home runs a year, he'd be bitching about how underpaid he was for the last 4 years, and it sure would be nice for a guy like that to go to the team and go, hey, how about you give me $8 million of that final season and we call it a day, and you find some kind of a happy medium. But I don't think the Players Association would even allow that, right?
Jerry.
Because it's a bad precedent.
Honestly, if you want to play realistic make believe, I don't think the Players Association would even allow that.
I know you can't get back money. You can't set that precedent. I know what you're saying.
And that's where I say the Carlos Santana conundrum comes up because you're saddled with Bourne and Swisher. You want to build around Francisco Lindor, Giovanni Urshela, Gomes, Brantley. Kipnis. So what do you have left? You have Brandon Moss, David Murphy, Ryan Rayburn, Mike Aviles, Roberto Perez, and Carlos Santana. There's one guy on that list that's bringing you value. There's just one. That's it. So, the question to me that I put out there is, how are you fixing this team? If you listen to our podcast the other day, I jokingly, and I think I've used it on your show too, we have a writer on our site, Steve Eby, who uses the term, and I'm stealing it from him quickly. He says the Indians are stuck in pretension, where you pretend to contend. And that's what they're doing. And if you want to keep those guys and you are insistent on riding out the Swisher and Bourne contracts, then the guys you have in the middle, they're not bringing back anything of value. The only guy who's there of value to improve the position player side is Carlos Santana. And if you're not going to eat Bourne and Swisher's contract and you're not going to trade Carlos Santana, then we're going to do a lot of shows like this until Bourne and Swisher's contract expires at the end of 2016. And next year, when March comes and the Indians have spun to us that this is a good team that can compete again, I will be on your show again saying nothing's changed. They're going to be mediocre again, just like I did this spring. It's not going to change. You can't just keep running the same guys out there and tell us that they're suddenly going to win 90 games again. It's not going to happen.
It's frustrating I get it, Indians fans all around, because you can see, you listed a bunch of players there. You can see the core, you can see the idea of what this team could be capable of, and that's it. And you know what, Bruce, that is a point to make now, and I hear you. Don't confuse the argument not spending money with spending the wrong money, but unfortunately they both wind you up in the same boat, whether you don't spend it or whether you spend it in the wrong places, because here they sit, man.
I mean, I've heard people say, the Indians need to spend more money. I mean, I'll counter that with, I think the Indians are pretty bad free agent shoppers. I would advocate that they stop spending money. They're better when they don't. I mean, look at the players that they have developed. I mean, for all of their knocks of their drafting and their minor league system, being an abyss basically from 2000 to 2010, if you look at the last 5 years, there's several players on this roster now that they have homegrown. They're not all stars, but they are contributors. There's three ways to build a team, really, Jerry. Free agency, trades, and develop your own. And I would say at this point, the Indians are pretty good at 2 of 3. They make pretty good trades, and they're pretty good at developing their own, in the last 5 years. And they have some more help on the way. I don't know that they have a lot of help on the way for this year, but I think as you look ahead into the next season or two, guys like Bradley Zimmer and Clint Frazier are going to make impacts on this team. And at this point, I think, I hate to say it, but I think that's their biggest plan, is to wait for some of those guys to materialize while Swisher and Bourne eat salary. But if you want to win in the short term, it's easy to say go spend money. But I would counter that with the Indians are pretty bad at it. I mean, even when they have it available, inside their own payroll ramifications, they're not very good at it. I mean, Bourne and Swisher, I mean, I'll be the first to admit that, I've been wrong on David Murphy this year, but I still contest that he's a guy that, he struggled last year. He's having a good year this year. What is the difference in the standings? There isn't much. I mean, he's just a guy who doesn't move the needle. I still don't think he's a good investment at $6 million. You can have a young player putting up, a good chunk of the production that he's putting up for a fraction of the cost. And I still advocate for, avoiding that, $6 million man kind of guy. But, I mean, that's what they're left with in the middle is, those guys. And, I mean, you look at their free agent signings, and I don't think it's just this roster. Go back over time and look at, the Chris Antonetti and the Mark Shapiro regime. I mean, other than fishing from the bottom, I think they're good at when they sign free agents, but going out and getting someone, they've never been successful at it. So spending more money, I'm not sure is the answer. I think if anything, it's their problem.
Mike, that's the part that I've brought up is so confusing to me, is what you just said, is how you can be, as a front office, very, very good, as we've seen, at looking at another team's players and going, boy, that guy or that guy or that guy. And you're good at looking at young prospects and going, that guy and that guy and that guy. And then when you're looking at the finished products, you can't get them right to save your life, man. Like, doesn't that just seem ass backwards there, that they can evaluate talent in any state except when it's actually talent,
Well, yeah, I agree with you. And I think, we can and we probably will complain about Nick Swisher and Michael Bourne for many shows to come, because I don't think either of them are going anywhere. But, hopefully some lessons are learned here, not just by the Indians, but by fans too. And that, you have to realize, most guys that are entering free agency are, and I know this is kind of a cliche line even at this point, but you're paying guys in their 30s for their production in their 20s. And I think especially with Michael Bourne, you have to look at him. And I mean, if you're going to learn a lesson that you can apply forward, Michael Bourne's game was built on speed, and speed goes and it goes quick. And I don't think that's just a Michael Bourne thing. I think you can easily, even Kenny Lofton, go and look at his numbers from his 20s and look at his numbers from his 30s and ask yourself if you would give Kenny Lofton the kind of money that the Indians gave Michael Bourne. And I think your answer would be no. And I hope that, moving forward, if you're going to invest in a player, and I think you have to at times, let's be fair, if you're going to play the free agency market at times, putting it towards a guy whose game is built on speed is a bad investment, because that speed is going to likely go in the early 30s, not the late 30s.
Yep, and you don't know when. Bruce has got a great point, too. Somebody we haven't brought up, and I've been incredibly disappointed, is Brandon Moss, because, you can point to the fact that he leads the Indians with 11 home runs. A bunch of those came in multiple in one game or garbage time situations. He's batting .230. He's literally – okay, Carlos Santana strikes out, and this son of a gun strikes out 40% more than Carlos Santana so far this season. He's got 76 Ks already. He's .215 with runners in scoring position, which really ties into here not getting what you paid for. It's theoretically going to bat behind when he gets on base. Either by this until I quick to mention Moss, offensive players that or not, but at a 1 or above besides Brantley.
And I will continue to say I think that's why he's valuable and why teams, and I
who's
think,
right there with him? Murphy. Murphy's right there with him. Those are your top 4 offensive WAR players for the Indians. It's Kipnis and Brantley, and then Santana and Murphy.
For sure, but let me ask you this: if you want to try and fix this roster, David Murphy has a $7 million option for next year. Are you picking that up?
Ooh,
he doesn't,
that's what I mean.
He doesn't play the
that's
field.
Tough.
He doesn't play the field. He's a defensive liability. In 2 years with the Indians, he's given you one very, very disappointing year, and he's giving you this year. Let's play make-believe and say he finishes, the second half of the season the way it started. Are you picking that option up for $7 million?
Man, that's a tough one. I'm with you.
And he's a platoon player, and that's the next question. He platoons with Ryan Rayburn, who has an option for $3 million next year. He's the same player as David Murphy. Are you picking that up? That's $10 million
for those two guys.
Bad defense. That's $10 million in bad defense and designated hitter. Are you picking those guys' options up?
I'll tell you what,
that's another $4 million.
You aren't lying about them being the same player. It's scarily identical, the Murphy and Rayburn stats. One's walked 10 times, one's walked 11. One struck out 19 times, one struck out 20. One's on-base percentage is .369, one's is 370. They're literally just right there with each other. OPS, one's at 800 or 884, one's at 856. They are practically the same player, just split in half there.
Yeah, and I make some tough decisions, and I'll be honest, I think the only decision that I think is wrong is just sticking with this roster as it's currently constructed, because at this point we've seen change.
When he says be optimistic, he's talking to me, just so you guys know.
Well,
I try to stay
I'm
there.
I'm talking to you, but you're not alone.
I know.
You're not alone. There are a lot of people who thinks that they're a day away from turning it around. And I say this all the time. It's not that I'm rooting against them. I love for them to turn it around starting tonight. But I just don't see where that's going to happen. And it's not a small sample size anymore. It's not early in this season. If you remember when it was early in this season, I was frustrated then, because this season is just a continuation of last season in my mind. It's so much of the same roster and the same group, and they're getting the same results, and I'm not surprised by any of it.
Mike Brandenburry, did the tribe win last night.com. Always a great talk today, too. I know we got to keep it kind of short today, but we can pick up on this for sure next week. And I'm sure you're going to pick up on all this on did the tribe win last night.com this week. What you guys working on?
We are. We're going to start to talk about, what do you do with this team? We're the end of June. We're entering July. People are going to start talking about the trade deadline. I hate to break it to people, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of excitement for Indians fans at the deadline. And I'll give you a good explanation in probably no less than 1,000 words as to why things I'm not sure are out there that can fix them. And I'm not sure. I mean, they're currently the 10th best team in the American League. I'm not sure that puts you in a position to go out and be mortgaging young players to try and bring in a player to get them to 500. So, as we start to enter July, I think you're going to see a lot of the same baseball, and you're not going to see a big move anywhere near the deadline.
Well, I don't think they make any moves either, and I will say this. I don't expect any magic switch, and I'm not that guy that thinks the light just turns on and tomorrow they start, as you say, 22 of 27 or something. But I do believe that regardless of anything else, this team can play better and that they can. Teams that's worth, I don't know what level of 500. Is it 85 wins? Is it 87? I don't know, but I do think this team's better than they've played, but there's still enough problems that they're not going to get to where some people hope that they would as they're constructed. I think that's obvious. But I do think, and you and I've talked about that, of course they're going to play better, then they're going to come back to the median, and it's going to be like that back and forth.
Yeah, and if they do, they'll have a little bit of a better second half, and we'll have a lot of the same storyline that we had this spring. We'll have next spring, and we'll talk about how well they played in August and September, and that it's going to all be different. But
I know,
I think isn't there some kind of saying about doing the same thing over and over is like
it's the definition of insanity, my friend. Yes.
See the 2016 Sloven Indians come out and enjoy the insanity.
Come out and enjoy the insanity. We'll let you beat your head against the wall. It's made of rubber, don't worry. But anyway, there you go. They have a rubber room, and then you can come, and that could come with the price of the ticket. You could have the corner, and then you could have the registration. I still, many of the things that we've talked about, I think, need to be going. Man, see, I'm with you on Carlos Santana to a point, but then the other half of me said, but where else do you go? There you guys out there arguing, because I've already gotten some messages during this saying, well, you don't just, I get it, I don't want to trade the guy either, but if you don't trade him and you're not going to say, hey, here's a check for $30 million, stop playing those other two guys that aren't doing anything, your options do become very limited. Unless you're going to start giving away pitching, which teams shouldn't do if you're smart, because that's the one thing you don't get rid of, but, whatever. We'll see where it goes. I think there's a lot of these conversations still to come, because like you said, it doesn't matter what the Indians believe or not. If they don't play themselves into a position by the trade deadline, they'll make it easy for Shapiro and those guys to stand out there and say, well, we decided to stand pat. So like you said, it's up to them. And if they play it into it, then who knows? But either way, I don't think they do anything major. I do think Santana would not be something that they would do until the offseason, as you mentioned. I don't see that being a mid-season trade, but could be wrong. We'll see, man. I mean, all we can do is watch it and talk about it.
I agree. Unfortunately, all we can do is watch it and talk about it.
You have to say that at some point, because you can't change it. So all we can do is see what they do and talk about it, man, and console ourselves. But there is
at least we have Lindor now. That'll be my second half of the year saying or slogan. At least we have Lindor now.
Got that first major league home run out of the ether there the other day, and they beat the Tigers. And now here you go. You've got Baltimore, Tampa Bay, and then who's at the back end of this road trip? You got Baltimore, Tampa, and then who's the last series?
Pittsburgh. Then they go to Pittsburgh, 4th of July.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So 10-game road trip here starts in Baltimore. Got Ubaldo this weekend. So, but there's a chance maybe, we've said this before, against these same teams, not Pittsburgh, but the Tampa and Baltimore trip before, a chance to try to get things going. What have they lost now? 10 of 16 since they had that nice run to finish the month of May.
Correct, and since that run, they've lost all the ground that they made up. They're right back, and that goes back to that's why they all matter of the 162. All of it's early people. It's not early anymore, and you're still 9 out. So, stringing together one of those big win streaks of like I said, 22 at 27. Those aren't easy.
No, absolutely. Mike Brandenburry, thank you very much, my man, from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. We will catch up next week, and we'll talk some more about all that's going on in the world of Indians and elsewhere.
Sounds good, my friend. Thanks for having me.
You got it. Thanks for being here. That's Mike Brandenburry. You guys check them out. DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com. We're going to take a break. Final break of the day. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back. Indians, Orioles will set the stage. We'll look at the pitching matchups, gladiators, and more. Final segment of The Fix coming up next.
Just begun to get our share of this world's delight. High hopes we have for the future and our goals in sight.
And now, a very special announcement from the Sports Fix.
Black bears weigh between 200 and 500 pounds. Brown bears weigh between 300 and over 1,000 pounds. Black bears run away from you. Brown bears run at you. When attacked by a bear, simply lie still on the ground and cover your face and head with your hands. When the bear has finished batting you around and mauling you, contact the U.S. Forest Service.
And that was a message from the Sports Fix.
This break's taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
It's the Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Yeah.
Nobody does that. We're at Fantasy Jocks have championship belt more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious.
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's Fantasy Sports Superstore, FantasyJocks.com.
What's your fantasy?
No football? No problem at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. From their awesome Wing Mondays to every single Cavaliers and Buckeye Hoops games in full HD.
Kyrie split the D, goes inside, teardrops it home right down Euclid. That's way up in there for two.
The excitement never stops. Every day of the week brings a different set of food and amazing drink specials.
And now,
fans. Harry Buffalo North Olmsted is the home for every UFC pay-per-view live on the big screens.
Let's get it all!
And let's not forget their mouth-watering trademark, the Bison Burger.
They sure are good.
Nobody does bison like Harry Buffalo. The perfect combination of healthy and delicious.
Hey there, eat up, y'all. You's as good church-going folk. Y'all deserve a little treat.
What are you waiting for? Get to Harry Buffalo, just outside Great Northern Mall today. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Hi, this is Dean Chenoweth, head coach of Cleveland's Lake Erie Monsters, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Wrapping things up, J-Rocc back with you. Thanks to Jonathan Knight for being here earlier. Don't forget, Monday, JK is going to be live in the studio right here. We'll crack open the phones and take your calls, and we're going to talk all about the making of Major League, the new book that he put together, the making of Major League, and some of the fun that he had with that. We'll talk about all the Cleveland sports in the news as well. It's going to be a lot of fun when Jonathan Knight joins us live in the studio on Monday. Thanks also, Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTryWinLastNight.com for being here. Make sure you check out their latest coming up this week. And Jeff Gorman, he'll be out for the next 3 weeks. He's got his summer teaching commitment, so it looks like Jeff will be back the week of July 21st, about the third week of July here. So we'll catch back up with him at the end of the month of July. We're at the end of the month of June, getting ready to head over. It's 4th of July weekend coming up next weekend and all of that. This weekend, you got the Indians and the Orioles playing. You've got the Gladiators on the road, so there's still some things to keep guys distracted. You know, thinking back earlier, we were talking a little bit about the Cavaliers and the NBA draft and all of that, and free agency, of course, looming next. And I said a little bit at the beginning that idiot Jalen Rose, and I know I throw around words like idiot sometimes. I don't care. I'm sure somebody out there calls me an idiot every once in a while, but Jalen Rose, let me tell you something. This cat last night, he's out there, he's slamming. I'm telling, did you watch the segment there in the first round where they're talking about the Cavs, and in 30 seconds you'd have thought that the Cavs won like 36 games last season? You know what I mean? I swear to goodness, man, it was ridiculous. David Blatt's gone, even though that's already been addressed, and Kevin Love's gone, and I don't know what's going to happen with that. I doubt he's going anywhere. But like yesterday, and Joe Varden from the Plain Dealer, another one. Heard bet that it's happened before, you know, from the Plain Dealer, Joe Varden and those guys, the LeBron James beat writer, did a whole article this morning. Now, David Griffin last night, I'm not talking about he alluded to the fact that LeBron was talking to them. He contacted single day about the roster and the moves that the Cavaliers are making. Yes, morning, and guys out here on the national media and idiots like Jalen Rose, I wake up to articles this morning about how LeBron's going to, literally, the Cleveland Plain Dealer, which has degraded so bad from what was once a great newspaper here, has a whole article about how LeBron James is going to be hands off and not going to talk, not going to do nothing here until the Cavs do what they do, and then he'll decide if he's going to sign his contract and come back. Like, we're still alluding that LeBron James may not come back to Cleveland here this summer. We're still in that whole mindset. The Kevin Love deal yesterday, you know, David Griffin stood in front of the media early this week and said, Kevin Love, we already have been informed he's going to opt out of his contract. We're well aware of that, et cetera, and so forth. And then they come out with it like it was a big surprise. Well, Kevin Love's gone. He's leaving. Everybody's leaving. The Cavs are blown up. Blow it up. It's Kyrie Irving and some coach that nobody wants to play for and a bunch of guys nobody's ever heard of and all of that. Never mind the narrative that half of those guys got brought here because LeBron brought them here. But, you know, he went through all of that to leave after. Do you have any idea? Let's be real. Let's take Cleveland out of this. Let's out of it. Do you have any admittedly foolish and never ever would happen business move to do a one and done way that they did? Come on, there is not a. I'm telling you. You want to make an argument about Kevin Love, that's fine. But, yeah, especially when it comes to the NCAA brackets. I've never won to tell you how great I am at that. But I do believe that I use common sense and thought and actually, you know, don't let the nose run away with my face and all of this. And those clickbait articles just drive me crazy. And you haven't seen anything yet because they're going to be slamming the Cavaliers hard. But, I mean, literally that Joe Varden article this morning got me. I'm like, David Griffin at midnight last night said, I've talked to LeBron nearly every day of the offseason so far. And this morning, Joe Varden, the Cavaliers' quote-unquote LeBron James beat writer, and that's not a joke, that's his title. There's a Cavs beat writer, and then the Plain Dealer hired a specific LeBron James beat writer. They've got two different guys out there, Varden and Haynes. One of them specifically covers LeBron, and the other one covers the Cavs and LeBron. There's a whole article this morning. It may have been Haynes. It may have been Chris Haynes. I'm sorry. It's one of the two because they're kind of a package deal, and I apologize if I got them confused. But either way, whole article this morning about how LeBron is going in the dark, and he's not talking to anybody. Last night, Griffin goes, LeBron is absolutely not going in the dark. And today there's an article that says he is. So come on, man. I mean, guys, I understand why fans get frustrated, and I understand why bad fans are out there. I say it all the time. Bad fans are created by bad media and bad personalities and bad information, and goodness gracious, man, it just drives me absolutely crazy just seeing some of that. And again, I say I understand. So I sometimes when I get into it with people, I go, hey, you know what? I understand why you are the way you are, why you're frustrated, etc., and so forth, because people will drive you nuts, and this stuff gets to me. It gets to me, especially when, you guys know I talked about this last week, uses his own word. I understand speculation in the media. When you're wanting to know in 2010 where LeBron's going to go and he's not talking to anybody and there's all this speculation about the decision. You know what I mean? Okay, nobody will talk. So we're speculating because nobody will talk and we don't know anything. But when they point blank tell you, now if they're lying, they will be proven to be a liar, and then their credibility is shot. But until they're proven to be a liar, if you ask a guy a question and he answers your question, you can't write articles about how your narrative is still true. It's not. It's just simply not true. You guys in the chat room, I see you talking about Jalen Rose. That guy last night was a trip. This is the same guy that said the Cavaliers would need a healthy Kyrie Irving just to win a game if they were getting swept. And meanwhile, we know how that turned out. I could give you 52 different things in the playoffs that I personally counted that Jalen Rose was wrong about. And that's only during the 52 times I forced myself to listen to Jalen Rose talk. He's just a god-awful basketball analyst. But most of those guys are, because to wrap it up, most of those guys on ESPN and most of those national guys, most people in the Twitter era of journalism, not everybody, because there's some great guys out there, but most people no longer report news. They don't discuss it. They don't have opinions on it. They try to create it. They want to make the news, and that's the horse around. I'm pretty sure I'll complain about bad media guys in the future again, but that one just really got my ass here heading on to the air today. All right, guys. Hey, let's look at the weekend real quick before we go. Mentioned it. Gladiators back in action before they're off for the holiday next weekend. Tomorrow, Saturday, 7 p.m., they're in Jacksonville, Veterans Memorial Arena. Gladiators coming off that tough loss last week. They gave up those 14 points in the final 40-some seconds or whatnot of that one. They lost 52-48 last week to Tampa Bay. Missed a chance to sweep all three games against them. Glads fall back to 7-6, a double whammy because Philadelphia won last week. So the Gladiators now 4 games out of first place in the division at 7-6. They're playing the 6-6 Jacksonville Sharks here today. Last time that those two teams played earlier in the season, the Gladiators and the Sharks are both very high-scoring teams. They're at 50 or more points for each team in 8 of the 12 games that they've played this season. As we mentioned, a tough one there last week for the Gladiators against Tampa. They do maintain a tiebreaker with them having won 2 out of 3. The Sharks coming in with a good win over Jacksonville last time they played, had a bye week last week. Saturday, 7 p.m., Doug Plagans calling all of the action. I think it's on the CBS radio network. Wherever you catch your Gladiators game, that's where Dougie will be calling the Jacksonville Sharks. Indians, they're not at home. They're in Baltimore to start this 10-game road. By the way, Corey Kluber looking to avoid a very bad whatever you want to say, attachment to a record. He is looking to avoid becoming the very first Cy Young pitcher in baseball history to be the first pitcher the following season to losses on the season. He has 9 losses that are going tonight as well. But if Kluber was to lose, it would be the first winner the following season was the first pitcher in baseball to lose 10 games. I mean, a lot of Klubers had some less than Kluber-esque outings, but he's also had some fantastic ones as well mixed in. As his 3.6 ERA will show, he's at 3-9 on the season, but he's sitting at a 3.6 ERA. Corey Kluber taking on the lefty tonight. Wei Yin Chin, 3-4, 2.86 ERA. There's a lefty, of course, back on the mound after that excellent first start that he gave the Tribe. He'll take on Chris Tillman tomorrow evening, Saturday. Good one. Trevor Bauer, 6-4, 3.86 ERA. Taking on former Indians fan favorite, Ubaldo Jimenez. Ubaldo, 6-3, 3.4 ERA this season. As we mentioned earlier, Tribes lost 10 of 16 coming into this one. Orioles took 2 of 3 the last time these teams played at Jacobs Field during the previous homestand. Kipnis on fire, coming in 19 straight game hitting streak. The Indians, however, having some trouble offensively against the Orioles. They've been out-homered 4-0 in this series, and overall, the Indians, this is the biggest problem. The pitching has been there for the Tribe. Their run differential is the second worst in the American League at -26, which means they think about a couple weeks ago. Dan Wismar and I brought up that stat, and it was totally different. It's really flip-flopped even more in the last little bit. Orioles have won 13 of 17. They've done well against the Tribe here this season, and look at the difference. Tribe -26 in run differential, Orioles +41. Indians offensively have to get themselves going. There's a lot of baseball to play. I agree with you guys in the chat room, brother. You know me. Hashtag Team of Destiny. Slap it on my chest right now like Kamala. I'll paint that thing with some stars in the moon because I believe that there's a long season to go. The Indians have the players, the guts and the grit to play better. They've just got to get out there and do it. And I do believe they're a second half team. Bruce is absolutely right in the chat room, and there is still a second half to come. But where I agree with Mike is that they've got enough to get there. Or do they end up right at the end of this season where they were at the end of last season, away from them at the big of a hole to get themselves out of? That's the part that I worry about. I have no doubt that the strong run is coming. You just don't want to be so far behind that it doesn't matter. Like we mentioned here, all that work to get back at the end of May, and you're now back to the same thing. That's the problem when you get so far behind, is that you dig yourself out of it, but then one bad week or two, and you're right back where it was. You just got to dig that nose to the grindstone a little bit harder. They get a chance to start on the road. You've got the Orioles this weekend, Monday, Tampa, and then Pittsburgh heading into 4th of July weekend. We'll talk about this weekend with Jonathan Knight. Remember, he's here live Monday in the studio. Cannot wait to be here. Cannot wait to have you guys here as well. Same bat time, same bat channel, live noon across the Sports Fix Radio Network. However you listen to the show, get back here Monday at noon and do it with us, and we'll see you here live. Have a great weekend. We love you, Cleveland and beyond, and we'll see you Monday, baby, right here on The Fix.
Everybody say yeah, 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 yeah.